Welcome to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for this week's Comics Aficionados podcast. I got a wonderful panel for you today. We're going to be talking all the upheaval at DC Comics. We got a new EAIC, another slew of layoffs. We have rumors of a tsunami of creators leaving DC to go to Marvel and other places. And we do have a top flight panel. If you're wondering where Ethan Van Sciver is,
if you're wondering where he's at, he's right here. My name is Ethan Van Sciver. I've been with DC for a long time. I do Cyber Frog and stuff like that. So get at your boy.
Obviously, Fatal J isn't either. He says he'll be here in like 15 minutes. We shall see when he does arrive. I imagine he's just going to jump right in. Also with us is a man that worked with Milestone, which certainly had a relationship with DC Comics back in the day. He's starting his own startup comic publisher. Jermaine Dargan, how you doing?
I'm doing good, and I am happy to be a part of this panel with Fatal J, the Grand Poobah, and the Curmudgeon. So I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be fun.
We've got a wonderful array of talent and Fatal J here with us today. So
okay, nice.
Obviously, as I just shouted you out, Fatal J, he's got the most fatal takes on the interwebs. Mostly talks about the DC EU and the Snyder. We're not talking about that crap today. There's plenty of content with us talking about that. But welcome to the show, Fatal J. How you doing?
Doing good. Live from my mom's basement. Thank you for having me today.
Your mom is a very nice person to let you set up shop in the basement.
She's a great woman to have a grown man staying in her house. Okay.
Yeah. She even lets you put up your posters.
Yeah. This is cool, man. She give me space.
Also with us is their curmudgeon of critical himself, a comic book retailer. He's definitely got opinions about what all this means. We had a somewhat lively discussion several months back when we were kind of breaking this all down. Obviously, there's been new things have happened. Pele, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, it's Saturday. Week's done.
It is early. I do apologize, guys. It sucks being in the Philippines trying to set all these things up.
Spider-Man sold well. That was good. 52.
Spider-Man 52 was a very good comic book in this guy's opinion, although probably a little bit too brutal for Spider-Man, but we shall see. Everybody disagree with me on that take, except for a couple people. Obviously, Perch, you join me for that one. You are El Percherino, the Poobah of comics himself.
Sure, why not? How are you doing?
We've been talking about this, it feels like, for a year now, Perch.
What, DC imploding?
Yes.
Yeah, at least a year. I mean, I feel stuck in a loop that we've been having this conversation about DC since the 80s. So, to be honest,
Absolutely.
They're always there.
So, for those who are tuning in, it says featuring or special guest Ethan Van Sciver. He says he's out and he's running a little bit late. Hopefully, he'll be here in about 15 minutes and he'll jump in and we'll have this conversation. Obviously, Ethan worked for DC Comics for a very long time. Certainly knows some of the inner workings. He's going to know some of these personalities that will let go. What exactly DC are losing with that? But before that, I have to do this. I'm going to give a salute to one of the Legion of Doofuses. I burn this guy all the time, but Tom Brevoort, you, sir, are a good American. He went out there. Tom King yesterday, this was his tweet, the transcendent, brilliant, visionary editor Mark Doyle is leaving DC this week. I could not have a career without Mark. He gave me my first gig, my first ongoing, made me take insane risks on big stages. In every genre, he tirelessly pushed comics to be better, a true legend. Mr. Brevoort, in a moment of awesomeness, came back and he said, didn't you force him off the Batman title and then crow about it in an interview? It's a bit odious to cry over the bodies when you had a band and killing them. Perch, what did you think about this? I was
oh my God.
It's funny. I mean, it's like I said, nobody saw Tom Brevoort coming. This is not, if all people to call somebody out here, but he's not wrong. I mean, this is a track record of King, who does tend to say one thing and then do a separate thing. And yeah, I mean, Mark Doyle, he was removed off the Batman books by Tom King's kind of argument. I mean, they got into a huge fight over who was going to draw the proposal. And Tom King basically put his foot down, stomped on it, and got Doyle off the books. And then, I mean, the kind of weird part about it is he kind of bragged about it. He went and did an interview where he said, I'm big enough, I can do this. And when you're small, you can't do this. And so I'm finally big enough, I get to do it. And it was a douchey statement. And a lot of people in the industry at the time made comments about that was a douchey statement. And so to be called out on it, again, nobody saw it coming from Tom Brevoort of all people, but he's not wrong. It's weird to then come and say, sorry, you're a true legend, wish you would have been there. Because the reality is the Batman line is hugely popular at DC, and if Doyle was still in control of that, he would still have a job today. I'm quite sure of it. So it was an interesting statement, but I don't like people who say one thing and do the other like this, and yeah, it's crazy.
You're saying he's two-faced.
Yeah, I mean, you can't like that character worth a damn.
Yep.
No, what did you think about it, Pele? I know you like see people get their comeuppance. I don't hate Tom King or anything. I don't really appreciate his writing, but he does stuff like this a lot, especially after what he did to Jay Lee and everything, right?
He's a putz, and he's always stabbing people in the back and doing like all kinds of shitty things to people, like little. I'm not even talking about like big shitty things, just like ticky-tack little, backbiting people and stuff like that. And it's nice to see it finally roll back on him a little bit. I just can't imagine actually being a friend of his, just waiting for the other shoe to drop, knowing that he's going to be stabbing you at some point. Just no, it's just what an asshole.
Yeah, it was very nice. Everyone talked about this. This one got a lot of play, right, Perch? Like everyone was happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was the unexpected aspect of it. It was. I mean, coming from Brevoort again, it's weird. Now, Brevoort's done some odd things over the last year. He was the one who posted that picture of like a bunch of unsold DC comics, laughing about it some time ago, and then he had a very kind of strange, depressed thread like a month or two ago. So I mean, he's kind of a weird track record here in 2020, but. I think a lot of people enjoyed being called out, and I think the fake tributes to people that are always feel bad in your mouth when you're somebody who actively helped that situation happen. So it was nice to see.
What is it, Schadenfreude?
It's Schadenfreude. Yeah, I really just like cancel culture. Note that nobody's calling Tom King to be canceled here. They're just calling him on his shit, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Love seeing people get called out on their BS. So that was enjoyable. Wasn't expecting to be saluting Tom Brevoort, but job well done, sir. Yeah. Tom King definitely deserved that one. You got the man fired, then you talk about how brilliant he is.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't get him fired, but he got him removed from Batman. Certainly probably played into him being fired ultimately.
Yeah. Well, fair should be fair. You did the action and you got called out on it, and I think that's fair should be fair. Whether you like him or hate him, that's how it should be.
Yep.
So let's get into the DC Comics talk. Now, Perch, we had just, like 3 weeks ago, we talked about this with all the restructuring going on at Warner Media. How was that going to affect DC Comics? We were like, well, they've already lost a third of their staff. A lot of that was editorial, including some key senior executives. Did they have anything left to give? It turned out they cut 9 more positions. They're at kind of a bare bones here. Are you shocked that it was that deep?
No, not really. I think that it isn't. Keep in mind, this is not what anybody wants to see happen, or at least I don't know. I don't want to see a bunch of people laid off here. I know some people call for that, but it is. They were bought by a mega corporation. That corporation took out massive loans to do it. They've got a bunch of different entertainment entities. They're always kind of running in their own separate ways. And AT&T is not looking at this like, hey, we just bought a comic company. Let's run a comic company. They're looking at it like we just bought a bunch of IP. And we are buying something that's going to fit seamlessly in with some of our other ventures. So yeah, they're gonna consolidate, and that is the only way they're thinking about this. They're saying let's look at the highly paid staff. Let's look at some contracts that might be a little crazy that were signed, and let's clean it up. Let's, the part about this picture that maybe a lot of people don't necessarily see is when you look at the other parts of Warner Media, they're having as deep a cuts as well. And it's just, everything's getting mushed together, and it's going to be a very different DC when all is said and done. DC doesn't go away, but it's not a standalone comic company anymore. That time is over. So
once they got bought up by AT&T, or even when, Time Warner kind of bought them, you're no longer competing against the other comic companies. You're competing within your own corporate structure. Who's turning out the most profit for the money they're putting into it? And DC isn't losing money, but they're certainly not generating money at the same clip as other parts of Warner Media. So they're going to emphasize those parts, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think they're going to look at their business. They're going to say, where are the natural overlaps? And that was and both natural overlaps and then contracts are just way too high for that business. And that maybe got grandfathered in or whatever have you. And that's where they're going to hit first. And that's what they did. And then they're going to look at where there's things that just don't matter anymore. And that's why you see, like the guy who helps run their events and conventions was gone this week. It's become clear as the years rolled on, that's not going to matter anymore.
Hey, I want to ask a quick question. With all these cuts going on, do you guys think comic quality will get better? Do you think it would improve, or do you think it'll stay the same, or what do you think? And shout out to Second Street Marvel in the chat.
Yeah. I'll bet you that we see a drop in quality, and then it will stabilize.
So you think, okay, I got you.
I think we'll see a little dip, and then it will go up, because right now the company is still trying to figure out, who's doing what. They haven't gotten any of the benefit from some of the other people that are now, in theory, supposed to be working with DC. I think you're going to see a lot of kind of weird missteps because they don't have as many people, and they're still trying to operate like they were. And it takes, whenever you have these kind of consolidations, it takes a year or more for it to really work out and then start to actually get the improvements that the layoffs are supposed to bring.
Truth be told, those freakers who came out with that Gotham High School where Joker is the hot throb and Bruce Wayne is a hot throb and they fighting for Catwoman love, get those people out of there.
I think it's one of the... I thought that was a terrible comment. I thought the Mr. Freeze book that was out last week was not good. And looking at February, there's like 3 or 4 more like that. DC but frankly, all of them, maybe Marvel less, which is weird to put your head around, are chasing this YA market. They believe that this YA market is going to be super lucrative, and they're doing so by making weird clones of Raina Telgemeier books. And I think that it's going to take, hopefully sooner than later, people are going to figure out that's not what people want out of DC YA.
Yeah,
that's DC could still play in YA. I think they're the Teen Titans cartoon, another thing they do, found an audience. But to try and clone Raina Telgemeier is that's not what you should be doing. Let Telgemeier be Telgemeier. Let Scholastic chase that audience. Don't try and retrofit Batman into that. That's a bad idea.
Because I hate it that people lose jobs, but the people who are still there, it may still stay on their A game, because you never know if your spot going to get taken. So
some will. Yeah. I think we'll see some people who will stabilize and really they'll become the new stars of this whole picture. I think you will see some of that, and I think you'll see a bunch of kind of weird YA experiments, and it'll take a year for that to burn out. And it's like, I think that DC is going to continue, and it'll keep publishing things. I don't think they're going to disappear tomorrow, but I do think that the DC we've known, the DC that is this standalone comic company, that is coming to an end. That's over. And that's I mean, it's many of the same comments people made when Disney swallowed up Marvel, that we won't see the same kind of Marvel. And we haven't. Marvel changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now the only thing that I'm seeing, the only thing we're seeing right now as far as performance of DC sales is that Batman is still soaring at the numbers that it was during Joker War, and Detective sells well, and then there's nothing.
Like Deceased, maybe.
Yeah, Deceased, but it's pretty specific audience there. You either take it or leave it, and it sells okay, but it's not Batman or Detective.
But you think about it, if
the drop off is huge.
if you're AT&T, what do you want to be successful right now out of DC? I mean, you'd love it if lots of things, but the thing that you're going to be putting your attention on is Batman and that universe doing well inside the company. We've got a movie coming out. We keep on doing that. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure they're quite happy with that part of the world.
So I do want to say welcome to the stream, Ethan Van Sciver. Obviously, you worked at DC Comics for many years. We've seen a lot of things happening on the DC Comics front. Thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for the invitation. Really appreciate it. Sorry, I had to, I'm a little late. We had to run and drop stuff off at the food bank, Wes. We're just good people, we're doing charitable things at all.
What do you feel?
I'm married myself. My wife sends me out all over the place.
Ethan, as an expert in frogs, how do you feel about little baby Yoda eating all those frog eggs?
Okay, now let me stop you right there. I have heard about this, and it has been difficult. I have not watched that episode yet.
Okay, I was wondering if it really touched your heart. It really hit you as hard as I thought it would.
As you know, I'm a frogs rights activist, and when I'm getting myself in the right situation emotionally before I watch that episode. I might be angry, so we'll see how it goes. I will keep you updated.
Okay, all right. That's all I wanted
to know. Back
to you, Wes.
So you'll be in the right frame of mind. You won't be too angry.
I'm talking about the recent Mandalorian episode.
But I tell you what, I laughed so hard on that, I nearly peed my pants. My wife was screaming. She was laughing so loud, and she did pee her pants. So that is an awesome episode. If you like dark humor, it will rip you up.
I heard mixed things about it. People are like, this is the first episode that's like outright sucked. And I'm like, how could that be? Because the last episode was really good. The premiere was excellent.
No, it didn't suck.
People
are just pissed.
The third episode is off the hook, but the second one was trash. I've been keeping up with all of them. It's garbage.
Wait, is there a third episode out already?
It's a third one with Bo-Katan. That one is good. It's dope.
All three of them are good. Anyway, Wes, we're off the subject. Real
quick, me and you share a mutual friend, Drunk 3PO.
Hell Drunk 3PO.
Hell Drunk 3PO. That's my brother right there, man.
It's good to meet you, Fatal J. And Perch is here too. It's great to be on the panel with Perch.
Oh, hey, thanks a lot.
So we were talking about all the things that are happening at DC Comics. I made a video, it might be 3 months ago, 2 months ago, where apparently we're having a discussion. I was like, it feels like DC Comics are deprioritizing the periodical comics, going in the direct market, and they've moved their eye towards the YA graphic novel sector, which is actually seeing growth while there's been decline as far as sales on periodicals, and it looks like they're really emphasizing digital. Do you think that's what all this is about, or do you think is it going to be worse than that for DC Comics?
Well, evidently, I don't know if you guys covered this, but they're going to be backing away from the YA novels. You just have to look at what they're doing, and draw conclusions from them. Bleeding Cool and I are running on the same track. As we see evidence come in, we're only guessing about what DC's doing, but they're educated guesses. And so far, what we predicted, what I predicted, and Bleeding Cool laughed at me at first, has borne out to be true. So DC Comics hired two joint EICs, both women. They fired one man and hired two women, which means that they're paying these women, gender wage gap prices. Good for them. Going to save money, guys. So two women making the same amount of money as one guy. And the whole idea was, well, Marie Javins and Michelle, what was her name? Wells. Marie, I've never met Michelle Wells before, but Marie Javin was supposed to do the DC Comics standard stuff that we all know, and then Michelle Wells was supposed to explore YA novels. Mm-hmm. She was going to do, you bring me the ocean.
She worked at Penguin, whatever house that they put out the books.
Right, she would be the go-to person to do that. Now, YA novels already exist; people like them. Can you take DC characters and make YA novels that that audience wants to buy? And that's why Michelle Wells was there. Evidently not, because she's fired. And it happened really quickly. I mean, it happened within 3 months. Now, our friend Larry's Comics in the chat there, he theorizes that it's because those books are returnable. And, AT&T is not playing around. AT&T thought, well, let's try this angle here. Let's see how it works. They put out all these YA novels. And I think this is a good theory, Larry. They put out all these YA novels like Gotham High and You Bring Me the Ocean.
I just said that. So they got rid of her, Ethan? They came out with Gotham High?
Yeah.
Thank you, DC, AT&T. You killing it right now.
Well, so before you get too excited about it, though, you've got 3 more in February, and then you've got contracts signed for another 6 in March. So it's not going to vanish that fast. But keep in mind, these things also get contracted, and we're going to see them play out for quite a while. It's not like they contract and they come out a month later. So you're going to have a 2021 of a lot of these books.
Perch, what do you think happened to Michelle Wells?
I think it was intended to be a temporary job. I don't think they intended to have it run that way forever. And I think that they were hoping there'd be another spot for her, and there wasn't. So I don't think it was anything really more dramatic than that. I think that Javins was always what they wanted to do. And
I think she got overwhelmed. I think she got overwhelmed in over her head, and she wasn't expecting the heat that she got and the hate, and she bailed out.
What a... Yep. Were people hating on Michelle Wells?
Oh my God! For the Gotham High shit and everything like that.
Oh yeah, those are
brutal.
Y'all haven't seen the Gotham High commercial?
Oh.
You look at how they were positioning both the statements they made and everything else. They were always putting Javins out in front, and Wells was always in the back. They were always positioning it that way, and it just over the 3 months where they were both kind of holding the job together. So I don't think there was ever a long-term plan that included Wells, personally.
I don't think there's a long-term plan at all, Perch. I think the long-term plan is let's dissolve this company. And I think that's what you're going to see. Dan DiDio's gone. All of the executives, all of the people who knew how to make comic books the way that we've seen them are gone.
Wow.
Replaced by a guy named Daniel Cherry III, hired from the outside. Who says, yeah, I like comic books, sure. Pamela Lifford, also, I think from Nike, where's she from? Comes in, and she's like the, what's her title? President? Yeah. And these people do not know how to make, they're not there to make comics. When you've got Jim Lee as a publisher of the comic, of DC Comics, and then you've got Marie Javins not reporting to him, but reporting to this other guy, Daniel Cherry III. Mm-hmm. This is clearly an effort to downsize and possibly dissolve an extremely insolvent company. I don't think they're coming back.
You said something about Jim Lee. Now this is just Fatal J talking. I thought that was a step in the right direction with having Jim Lee in that position. You think that's not a good idea?
When I worked there, Jim Lee had that job title because they wanted him to work for DC forever, and Jim Lee is so powerful and so awesome. Jim Lee's first words were, "Why are we still printing paper comics?" I don't know if that's true or not, Larry, but that's I think that's right. Jim Lee is so powerful that they couldn't tie him down with just an ordinary exclusive contract. No amount of money will do. How do you keep a man like that tied to your company so he doesn't go draw X-Men from Marvel or do whatever he wants to do? Yeah. You give him power. And that's what they did. They made him co-president, co-publisher, chief creative officer, the biggest titles that they could to get him there. But he doesn't want to do any of that. He never took any administrative authority. He never told us anything. If I wanted to get a book done at DC, I didn't go to Jim Lee. I went to Dan DiDio. Yeah. Also, I didn't go to Bob Harris. I went to Dan DiDio. Bob Harris, I would sit down and have a talk with Bob Harris and say, I want to do a Green Lantern book. And he'd be like, let me run that by Dan DiDio. And I'm like, why am I talking to you? Let me just talk to Dan DiDio then. So ultimately, Dan DiDio leaving and leaving Jim Lee behind. Jim doesn't want to do this. Jim doesn't want to be an editor in any way. It's just not what he's there for. So the theory is that Jim Lee is there to finish out doing style guides of every single IP that AT&T now owns. So he's going to sit there and draw all of these characters, everything that DC owns, and then he's going to leave.
Going to fizzle out. Wow.
He's going to leave. And AT&T's they just need a Bible of all of the properties that they have. All of this, it's not about comic books at all. It is about a streaming service. Wow. It is about television. It's about competing with Netflix and Disney Plus, and that's they don't want to do comics anymore.
And it makes sense though, and I hate to say that, but it makes perfect sense because that's where everything is going now: streaming, digital, streaming. You know.
So you don't think digital comics are in their or a direction that they think DC Comics should go?
Yeah, they're going to open up an enormous digital library of everything that they have, all comics, be subscription based. You can buy in and read all of the comics. They'll produce very few new ones, but I mean, it's a thing of the past to them. It's just a thing of the past.
So first, I mean, we've discussed these things. You know, we've felt like I do think they are deprioritizing comic books, but they're still going to make them. Do you agree with Ethan's position there, or are they just going to drop comics completely? Because I don't even know why they would license them out. It probably would be more of a headache than anything, really.
Yeah, I mean, I still believe they're still going to make comics. I just believe that it's not, like I said right before you joined, Ethan, I don't think it's not going to be the same DC. I think people look at this and they say DC as we know it is dying, and that is to some extent probably true. DC as that people have known it as a standalone publishing house is dying. It's a very different beast now. It's something that's always going to be wrapped in with the streaming service, with what they're doing, with movies they want to promote, with properties that they think they can make some money off of licensing, everything else. It's a different type of business. And so the output of that as a fan is kind of, you're probably still going to get graphic novels and things you can read that are comics. You're not going to get the same kind of comic business that existed in the 90s from DC. But I think that statement is true for nearly everyone. I think Marvel is down the same route eventually anyway. I think they're all going to be. The comics business is going to change. Digital is going to be a factor of how everything is done, whether people love it or hate it. It is going to be true. And it's just, you're going to have different content. So it's like, do you want to read a Superman story? You're still going to be able to, but it's going to be different in the future. And I think that's, I don't know. For me, it's I've been in this business for a long time. I'm an old guy. So it feels more inevitable than anything else.
I think there's going to be a simplification as far as the titles ongoing. You're going to see a drop from the high point. What was it? 72 titles at one point, more like, I think at one point it was like 80 something titles, but you're going to see 20 titles, 25 titles maybe. And you'll have your Batman, your Detective, Superman, Action, Wonder Woman, and then Justice League and a few others, but Teen Titans, and the rest of them are going to be just specials that come out every once in a while. And I don't think that they're going to dump Batman. They're not going to dump Detective. Those still make money. But it's going to be simplified. You're not going to see a lot of the big, huge, events like we had before. It's going to be a lot more simplified.
Can I play the advocate on this one though? That's what I always wanted in comic books. Because let me tell you something, I don't need a Jim Gordon comic book. I don't need 10 Robin books. I always wanted 20, because if I had that 20 sitting there, I'm going to buy that whole 20, not that whole 245 different comic books that's coming out each month. Now, that's just me. It's not just you. It's not just you, Fatal J. I'm with you right there. I don't need 15 X-Men comics, and I never have. Never have. And I think the real thing that I haven't heard a lot of people discuss it about is really this isn't so much about whether DC or Marvel is going to make comics. This is a question about whether the direct market, as we know it, continues.
Yeah,
that's where it goes away.
I think they'll have a direct market special package that will be like the Batman, Detective, Superman, Action, like the titles that I was talking about earlier, that will be available direct. Then they'll have a larger, broader market that's maybe up to 25 titles or so that's going to be digital, and that'll be it. You'll have a slimmed down, more mobile DC Comics, and I think it could work that way. But they will be down probably a quarter of the staffing that they had at one point.
They're over half now. just with the layoffs they had. No, so Gervain, you are starting your own comic book company, Animated Concepts. Mm-hmm. Does this make you hesitant about entering the market? Does it make you nervous that one of the market leaders, it appears that DC is going down this path first? I imagine Marvel's going to follow, and they're also part of an enormous, a corporate entity now. Like, does it? You kind of need those big boys there to kind of prop up and to have a market to enter, right?
I mean, I don't know if that's the case anymore. And I think I'm going to go to the discussion you had with Joe Corolla that I watched in preparation for this. And I'm kind of with Corallo. And I'm kind of with him on this. And with you as well as Wes, I think this opens up opportunities. I think the big problem over the last 20, and if not 30 years has been, how do you sell these floppies? And I don't think Marvel and DC have cared to figure out that problem. I don't think they know how to do it. And I'm still not convinced, like other people are, that there isn't an audience that doesn't want to buy it in that format. It's just these two market leaders don't know how to do it. And they don't know how to do it in a way that it doesn't look like anything other than the industry looking very mature and dying, as opposed to there being growth. And
people want to buy floppies.
Yeah, people want to buy floppies. So how do you explain a Sean Gordon Murphy or even Ethan Van Sciver with Cyberfrog? How do you explain those guys? And the reason why you explain those guys is that they're leaner, meaner, and more able to be more reflexive to what the market wants than a Marvel and DC is right now. Marvel and DC, now, and Wes and I had this debate about this, and he said I was talking about a different era. But the simple fact of the matter is that, and I'm going to jump off the back of Perch here. This is a time warp we've been stuck in about DC, about DC dying, because every 5 years, at least for the people I know, somebody at DC and even some cases at Marvel were talking about just getting out of the comic book business. And the only reason why DC hadn't gotten out of the comic book business up until this point is because of Batman, and everybody knows it. Batman is the house. DC is the house that Batman built. If they weren't making that Batman money, they probably would have left comics a long time ago. And because Pele's right, when you talk about digital, every time somebody tells you about digital and growth in digital, I say, well, I haven't seen the digital adoption make any leaps or bounds from none of the data or numbers that I've seen in the last 10 to 15 years. And then someone throws out Batman. Batman is an outlier. Batman is a complete and total outlier. You cannot compare Batman to probably 95%. Well, actually, Batman's probably 95% of DC's line, but you can't compare Batman to 95% of the other properties at DC, with the exception of maybe Superman and Wonder Woman, but that's more from a merchandising level as opposed to a comic book sales level. So for me, it just says what are the opportunities now? What are the opportunities to do floppies, do digital, do whatever. But I think once Marvel and DC starts making this move, the direct market and the real way goes away, and that means we don't have to figure out how to sell these things a different way anyway.
Mm-hmm. So Ethan, obviously,
go ahead.
This affects your business. You're in the selling comic book business. You're doing a different mechanism for it. You're going through crowdfunding, direct to consumer. Does it make you nervous when you see some of the big guys decide to take a step back? Or do you see it as opportunity?
Well, I definitely see it as opportunity. It does make me nervous that if people aren't buying comics somewhere en masse, maybe people won't be predisposed to come and find me. That does worry me a little bit. But fortunately, again, we've got social media, we've got YouTube, we've got Twitter. We've got all of the marketing power of these big companies in their prime. There's no reason why we could not sell the numbers of books that these Marvel and DC are selling. It didn't used to be this way. We used to be like fighting for room in the Diamond catalog and the Previews catalog, hoping to be noticed as indies. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. Wes from TC can build up his channel, make it big, and he can launch his comic book. He can promote other people through his channel, market people, reach an unlimited audience, a potentially unlimited audience. And that's where we find ourselves. The world is changing. People don't want to let go of what they're used to. But what they're used to just isn't sustainable anymore. It's not the way people do business. It's not the way people buy things. I mean, when I want to buy something now, I don't know about you guys. I go on Amazon, I go on eBay, I look it up, I have it shipped to my house. I can wait a couple days for it. You know, I'd rather do that than get in the car, waste 30 minutes round trip of my life going out to buy something. I'd rather find something else to do with that time. Point and click is the future. Direct to consumer is the future. So everything is happening as I think it should happen, Wes. You know, it's like and I know it's painful for a lot of people, but we've got the direct market, and these big two companies have been trying to make up their declining sales with
variant schemes and events, event after event.
More work, a proliferation of comics. You guys were just saying, I don't need 15 X-Men books. Hell no, you only need maybe 2 X-Men books. You know, in the 1980s, it was X-Men and it was X-Factor and then the reprint books. And that was it. That's what you had. And that's all you needed. But I mean, because comic sales are going down and overhead is through the roof for these big companies, they're trying to make it up, you know, with quantity. And it's
well, comic sales going down isn't really a change in the market, because our sales are going up because we sell back issues. And, you know, I can get... When we open up the store in the morning, I got 6 guys waiting out front with short boxes waiting to come in and buy back issues.
That's awesome.
And it hammers all day long.
So, do you think the future of the direct market is back issues rather than new comics?
No, I think that there's the stories involved with those back issues, the more you know, comic type of, you know, the different types of comics that are involved in the back issues. Right now, they're trying to get a little bit too clever by half, and it just does not sell. So, you know, you look at back issues, you know, the dollar bin, 50-cent bin. You know, comics right now are too expensive. They have convoluted storylines that a lot of people are like, what the fuck? What the hell? You know,
yeah,
and
Ten of
so
Swords is the best example ever. 22 chapters.
And they go bad instantly, Pele. I mean, you know, the thing is, like, if you don't buy a copy of Spider-Man in 2 weeks, nobody wants it. It's no longer relevant. Comics have become like baked goods. You know, it's like they go bad, they go stale, and then you've got to put them in the 50-cent bin. And I don't know how much you're paying for an issue of Spider-Man. What, $2? You know, when you're buying it, as a retailer.
Yeah, about $185. So.
I mean, it's crazy. That's a complete waste of. You're losing money on these comics if they do not sell in 2 weeks. It used to be, hey, this issue of Spider-Man didn't sell, mark it up $1 and throw it in the back issue bin, because old comics are worth more than new comics. You know, not anymore. You've got Silver Age stuff that's worth a lot, but you know,
bronze is the new silver now. But you know,
how the business is changing.
Thank God.
But it's because you have people with no talent writing these books, and that's why it doesn't have no value to it. I'm just keeping it real. There's no talented people with no background in comics who don't care about comics. You guys, y'all hit it right a long time ago.
Let's look at it from basic dollars and cents here. You could buy a back issue comic, cost you $1 out of the dollar bill. Neil Adams did the freaking cover art, and you had, you know, a competent writer writing the damn book, and for $1, holy shit, you know, that's amazing. You know, now you've got, like, you know, garbage writer here, garbage artist here, you know, churning out, you know, convoluted storyline over here. That's why they don't sell. For $3.99.
Yeah, you got to have more books. They're pumping out more books. They need to pay people less in order to do them, and they need to raise the cover price. This is not health. You know, this is not a formula for the future. So, you know, getting back to where DC is going, they're getting rid of all of that. They're cutting out that fat. Their focus is somewhere else. Are they going to be doing pamphlets? Yeah, a little bit. Are they going to be doing digital? Sure. It just isn't their focus anymore. You know, just isn't what they're going to be doing. It is going to go away. And we're going to see the same thing happen to Marvel. It's going to be interesting to see. They've already fired John Nee, their president. They fired him quietly. Not a lot of people were talking about it, but John Nee is gone. Just the same way Dan DiDio was fired. And then, so like the head of the snake, cut that off. And then all down, and they're going to be firing all kinds of editors and executives. We're going to see that happen in the next month or two.
Cats like Dan DiDio and Jim Shooter, them cats like that can really turn around the market. They don't want those cats in there. They got a plan. They don't care about the Bush no more. This is supposed to be a digital Netflix streaming type era that we in when it comes to comic books. They just haven't figured it out yet.
So Perch, obviously EVS was getting into the Marvel stuff. We've kind of been waiting for this shoe to drop for Marvel, kind of when Kevin Feige was named the chief creative officer over everything. There was going to be some changes. We think that's been delayed because of the pandemic. Obviously, Disney just announced that they had another absolutely terrible quarter as far as revenues. Are we going to see this before the end of 2020, or do you think it's going to drag out into 2021?
The clue to this, just you look at Disney. So you look at how Disney terminates people, how they tend to lay people off and everything else. They tend to do it quietly. They don't do it in big groups unless they have to. Obviously, they did some things at the park, but keep in mind there's a lot of operational people. That was a little bit of a different story. When they're talking about executives like this, they tend to do it one at a time. They tend to do it quietly. John Neese that EVS talked about, I did a video on that last week. But what's interesting is nobody cared. Like, you look at the amount of traffic for that, very little. The Marie Javins news, lots of people cared about, but that just flew right under the radar. And it's like the responses that I was getting was like, I don't know who this is. Doesn't matter. You're going to see a lot of that kind of occur over the next 3 months, and it is coming to Marvel. And it's not this isn't a doom and gloom prediction. It's a look at the world. The market has changed. The money's not coming in. There's a different goal in mind for these companies. It's not that everything is racing to death. It's that everything is racing to a different state in its life. And that people may say, that's you splitting hairs and you're saying one thing, but it's a different business now. That's the cleanest, easiest way to say it. And they're going to trim people that don't align to the new business. And that for people who've been longtime comic readers, that's going to be ugly. But it absolutely is coming to Marvel. And it's absolutely going to hit new names at some point that people will care about.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that because I talked to a couple of retailers about this, and just a couple people in general. It's not that comics are going away. That's not what this is. This medium has been around since cavemen were in caves.
Yep.
As long as a kid has a pen or a crayon or a pencil and a piece of paper and a stapler, this is never going away. What's going away is the way they're selling these things. That has been the problem. Is how are you going to sell these things? And Marvel and DC as the market leaders have not shown an ounce of concern about this. And Feige, from the people that I know, this ain't his interest. He doesn't see the prestige in the comics bit. And why would you? Back in the 70s when they were doing the dollar comics, if you read I think it was the DC Implosion was the book, where you had Jeanette Kahn fighting against people who back then were saying, we're sitting on like 40 to 50 years of material. Just reprint the things and sell them cheap. Now, she didn't want to do it because she felt there was a value proposition issue with it, or like it was kind of like, how can you just sell somebody old stuff? But the simple fact of the matter is there might be more of a market for that than putting out basically lower quality material at $5 a pop, when it's just like, look, dude, I just want one Superman comic with one creative team that stays on there for more than 6 months, so I can get used to them. They can build up to a good run, and let's keep it moving. The problem with a Fantastic Four antithesis is that why do I have to buy that 4 issues separately? That should be part of the regular Fantastic Four run. Period.
Well, all they care about now is deconstructing the heroes, and nobody knows how to write for a damn hero. I mean, You've got so few people, so few writers out there in comics that know how to write heroic comics. You've got Chip Zdarsky, awesome writer. He's one of the few. Tynion knows what he's doing. You've got Hickman, kind of, whenever he can stop sniffing his own farts, and you don't have that many creators out there that actually know what the 70s and 80s writers knew.
No, and yeah. No, and Penny is right, because a year ago when House of X and House of Powers of 10 were out, nobody had a problem with X-Men.
Nope.
Until Dawn of X came out.
Till Dawn of X came out, because it was like...
Till Dawn of X came out.
Yep. And, I mean, Hawkman's ending, people. Hawkman number 29. It was one of the few damn comic books written by anybody in any from Marvel or DC that actually had a heroic character that was awesome. The art fell down on its face a few times, but it was a well-written comic book. Daredevil, well-written comic book. They don't push these books though. They don't try to market them. They don't try to sell them. They don't do anything of the sort. They want to sell the frou-frou, crappy, deconstructed hero bullshit like Bendis is writing with Superman. And it infuriates me. It absolutely infuriates me. And they wonder, why are our sales down? Why are our sales down? Because people want heroes. They don't want these troubled idiots that, at best could be called an anti-hero, and at worst is usually a villain. What the hell?
And they want good, quality creative teams on it. That's the other thing. It's like when Hitch was on with was it Vendetti on Hawkman. I was there. Then it went, I like Olaf, so I stayed around for Olaf, if I'm getting his name right. But then it's like, and I don't want to disrespect Fiverr, but it's like, for the love of God, then it's like all of a sudden when it gets to be a nice groove and the sales are right, they just decide. It seems like it's always like about the 18th month point, between 14 to 18 months, where they just put the intern from the art high school on the book. No, I'm not paying $4 for that. I'm not paying $4 for that.
Yeah, they listen to too damn much. They listen to too many of the retarded. Sorry about the word. Just listen to too many of the retarded, stupid comics journalists out there. They aren't the ones that buy the damn comics anyway. Who want? Oh, we need more reconstructed heroes. We need more of these dark tales. No, you don't. You need heroes. You need heroes, stories about heroes. You need heroic artwork, and you'll sell comics again. But no.
I do want to ask Ethan about this. Obviously, we're talking about Hawkman. It's ended this week. It's one of my favorite runs on the character. Robert Venditti was the creator. Obviously, you work with Robert Venditti closely on Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, one of my favorite Rebirth series. Are you worried for talents like Robert Venditti that are traditional heroic style storytellers? Do they even have a place, at the big two, or is he going to have to go venture out on his own, or maybe do indies or crowdfunding?
Well, he's been elevated to the point where, I think DC Comics, as it were, did value him quite a bit. They moved him around, they used him. I think he was becoming kind of a second tier. Sorry, Robert. A second tier writer, which is a good thing. That puts you with Cullen Bunn and these guys who get put on all these big projects. But they're all going to have to find work, Wes. They're all, people are used to, when you work at DC Comics, I was making a page rate of about $900 a page to pencil and ink. And I was drawing a book every other month. And that was what I was making, plus royalties, okay? So these people get used to making this kind of money because the work is always there. The work was coming in constantly. And that was my lifestyle. So when it goes away, and it is going to go away, it's going to shrink. There will be fewer books. It's a game of musical chairs. A lot of these guys are going to have to figure out what they want to do. They're going to go into the indies. They're going to try to find other positions. But the page rates are shrinking too. Part of what Daniel Cherry is there to do is say, why are we paying this guy $900 a page? Can we get him for $4? And they would, if I were at DC right now, I'd be getting that phone call. Hey, we're going to let you stay another year, but we can't pay you what we were paying you before. The money's just not there. So you want to do it for $400? Now I got to go to my wife and say we're going to be making less than half of
cancel the vacation.
Yeah, so you're going to see everybody doing that. That's going to be all over the place. And then there are just fewer opportunities for people as they stop publishing 150 books a month and pare them down to what I think is going to be about 12 comic books a month.
And one of the questions you ask ourselves is how did they get up to 150 books a month in the first place? And, and part of it is that those of us who are watching this video, some of us who have been avid comic book readers a long time, we have supported that bad behavior, if you will, but not voting with our dollars. But it was like you would read editorials in the back of Marvel Comics sometimes where they would be like, we're moving this paper up to a better grade because you guys, I said, you never asked me. You never asked me if I wanted to pay $1 or $2 or $3 or $4 for anything. I was happy with my new Teen Titans comic that came out once a month. I didn't need the Baxter version of it or this version or that version of it. You put it out there, you move Perez and Wolfman over there. I followed them over there, but you never asked me if I wanted to pay for this kind of stuff. Comics should have been cheap, affordable, whatever it is. The direct market provided a marketplace, because it was my understanding, at least from what they said publicly, that the artists wanted their work to be seen on nicer paper. You created a market where that could be done in the forms of reprint editions, masterpiece editions, or even regular outcoming content. But control the dang marketplace, though. Control the marketplace. Newsstands were a problem, but newsstands were necessary to keep that product in front of the next generation that had to come along to buy these books. Right now, the only way you get somebody new into this is if I or Fatal J or Wes or whoever's running the YouTube channel now, or whoever's an uncle, a favorite uncle, or a dad is introducing this new generation to this stuff. Because until my daughters come to me and say, "Dad, can I get an annual subscription for Shonen Jump?" It ain't happening. It ain't happening unless I share with them that Shonen Jump thing. And at this point, Marvel, DC, the comic book industry is gonna have to start paying me to do that. I've done my tour for the last 30-something years, getting us to the point where the superhero genre is mainstream in the movie industry, and the lovely success we had in the 90s. And all I've gotten for it is titles I don't want at prices I can't afford.
Yep.
At places it took me an hour to get to.
So one of the things that we've seen, we know the page rates are going down. There's people have been talking about a tsunami of creators moving from DC over to Marvel. I just had a conversation with Joe Corallo, and we were like, well, I don't know if they're specifically going to go to Marvel, but there's all these opportunities. Booms, sales are going up. Looks like Image sales are going up. You have the crowdfunding route. In Perch, just, I guess yesterday we learned that Jeff Johns and Gary Franks are doing a book at Image. Sure. And they're kind of betting on themselves. Why? I'm shocked that DC, obviously it's not in their budget to take the opportunity on Jeff Johns. He just shipped 300,000 issues of a comic book.
What a disaster for them. That shows you that they don't give a damn about making money. They don't care about making comics. To lose Jeff Johns is one thing. Jeff Johns is loyal, and he's been loyal to DC Comics for as long as I've known him. We left together to go work at Marvel for like a year and a half. Came right back to DC Comics and never left again. For him to be doing that comic book with Gary Frank somewhere other than DC Comics just proves DC, they don't care. They're not here to do comic books. They're not here to even try to make money at comics. They
stuck their finger in his eye. I mean, they absolutely, it is they had the beautiful layup. They had the beautiful layup with
It's because of the Zack Snyder stuff, man.
Oh my God! Why they doing them Doomsday Clock was this incredible layup into Rebirth that was going to it would have set DC for 5-7 years. It was absolutely incredible. They had it lined up with the Flash, Batman, Superman, all this, just packaged in a beautiful bow, put right in front of them by. And Didio went, nah. I don't think so.
It's because Ray Fisher out for blood, and they trying to push everybody.
It's because Jeff Johns and Dan DiDio have a rivalry that has never really been talked about too much. Those two guys, they're jealous of each other. Well, I don't think Jeff's not jealous of Dan.
Jeff's not jealous. DiDio is jealous of Johns.
DiDio was jealous of Johns.
Everyone loves Jeff Johns, and Dan DiDio doesn't like that. He wants that kind of love.
Personalities are like oil and water.
Ray Fisher stuff. The Ray Fisher stuff is not helping either, though.
Because Ray Fisher's situation is a little. I mean, that's more on the AT&T side. I mean, but it's an indication that this. Maybe the best way to put this is, to your original topic is that we keep talking about it as like DC Comics. It's not DC Comics anymore. It's AT&T. This is a subsidiary of AT&T. It's AT&T Comics, and so they're going to run this business like AT&T. When you say they don't care about making money in comic books. Yeah, they care about making money in these media properties. That's what they care about. That's where they care, and that can. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people are feeling very devastated about that. But when a giant corporation buys a smaller company and consume it, this is the result. So I mean, maybe it's not. This isn't a surprise. I guess that's the part that I react to. Is that none of this is like, oh my God, can you believe this is happening? Yeah. Of course you can believe this is happening.
Yeah.
Yes. When Disney bought Marvel, Marvel fundamentally changed.
Yeah. If people don't realize it, but the money generated from licensing like DC, T-shirts and lunch pails generates more revenue than the entire direct market as far as new comic book. Obviously, if you go to the secondary market, there's a lot more money in there, but
AT&T and Warner Brothers combined are $158 billion in debt.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, you go, well, what does DC Comics make? DC Comics brings in $360 million a year with a use of manpower, a ridiculous amount of moving parts to make that money happen. It's not that much money. It's just not that much money to them. They would much rather not pay these salaries, not deal with all of this extra stuff.
Produce another show for HBO Max, which is fledgling right now.
Anything would make more money.
Yeah. But they made that decision back in the 90s that comics were basically going to be this IP factory for whatever they do in other areas in terms of merchandising and licensing. So that part of the business changed a long time ago. That's fine. I don't have a problem with comic books floppies being niche. And just to answer some of the stuff in the chat, I'm not saying there's not quality material out there. Like I said, I'm a Firepower fan for at least the next 5 years, just based on the way they sold me that graphic novel at $9.99. But that's what I'm talking about. So I don't even flinch at the $3.99 for the rest of the story, because it's like you're trying to deliver to me a product with that has a value proposition. You want me to support it, so you sell me something, this lovely graphic novel at $10 to get me nice and hooked into the story, and now I'm a sucker for at least the next 2 years until the art team changes up for something else. I love Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's my jam right now, because it's got good art, good stories. It's not confusing as heck to jump from one thing to the other. There's a couple of the books that I'm not thinking of right now, but what I'm saying is nobody was complaining when House of X and Powers of 10 came out. That was the first time in probably about 15 years where I was walking to a comic shop and you were walking into conversations about comics. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it was a quality product and it was only 2 issues. It required 15 issues by people that basically maybe you need a little bit more seasoning before you jump on a monthly title.
It was the first time. I mean, we had people that hadn't darkened the door of a comic book shop in 20 years. That was like, oh God, I heard that X-Men was being relaunched with Hickman. I've got to be in on this. And they were excited, and people were lined up at the door when opening. Usually, that's only the nerds that are there to get back issues. And people were talking about the comics while they're in line to buy them, and sitting there reading through them and going, "Oh, look at that!" Pointing and stuff like that. They were excited, and that's the way it used to be. That's the way it was back in the 90s and the 80s, when people were going to comic shops. Yeah. It's the first time I'd seen it in forever.
Exactly. And then if the monthlies had been anything like the one limited series that was actually what Dawn of X should have been, which I'm going to keep pumping up to the day I die, which was X-Men Fantastic Four by Zdarsky, we still would be having this discussion about Dawn of X. But that limited series, which only came out for 4 issues, was the only thing that even halfway came close to representing the spirit of what you thought the new status quo of the X-Men was going to be going forward, in a line that you wanted to invest in.
Do you know what's so sad? I was just going to say, you know what's so sad right now about DC? And now, Batman's okay, Detective's okay. I like Batman, actually. It's one of my favorite titles right now. But, overall, the best written, drawn comic book right now that DC publishes is a fantasy comic. Let that simmer in your head right now. Not superhero, not capes, not even mystery or anything like that. It is a fantasy comic called The Last God. And if that doesn't tell you about where DC is right now, nothing will.
Ethan,
I feel like everything's kind of on hold. I do want to say this. For the people joining us right now, if you haven't subscribed to Thinking Critical YouTube, please consider subscribing to the channel. But if you're enjoying this conversation, we're having a great debate here talking about all things DC Comics and all the upheaval. Give us a thumbs up and definitely get some comments in the comments section. We would definitely appreciate it. Back to you guys. What were you were jumping in there, Fatal J, right?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question to Ethan. He was saying that the artists will have to start taking pay cuts and going to indies. Now, that was my question with the indies. How is this going to affect Image Comics and Boom and Dynamite and all these companies? How's that going to affect?
You're already seeing it happen. You're seeing, for example, Jeff Johns and Gary Frank going to Image, and you're going to see more people going to Image. That's going to be their first choice when breaking away from Marvel and DC. Guys who have had long-term careers at Marvel and DC are going to go to Image. Now, one thing that's going to be interesting is if they choose to crowdfund first. We've seen other people do that. I'm a big proponent of crowdfunding. I think it's a great idea because Image Comics is a weird thing. I don't know if you understand how it works. I mean, Image is a nonprofit company. They don't pay a page rate. You pay them. You pay them. I think the rate is $2,500 per issue. You give that to Image. They'll market your book. They'll put the eye on it. They'll publish it for you. And then you get 100% of the profits. When there are profits. So usually there aren't. So, I mean, lately people from Image are getting bills. You know, it's like you're putting out a book and you're not getting paid. You're getting a bill. You owe us $1,100 for this book. You know, it's like in addition.
Yeah, it's the record industry all over again.
It's a mess.
It's basically people pitching. It's basically people pitching their television show and movie ideas and paying Image to basically put a preview of it up for them.
That's correct. That's what people are doing now. There are people who aren't doing comics. These are people who are desperately trying to get out of comics and get a Netflix deal, get a movie deal, thinking that they're going to be the next Robert Kirkman. You're going to see a lot of people jump into the indies. Boom. I don't know if Boom and IDW and Dynamite and Image, I don't know if these companies are capable of taking on all of these fleeing, comic book professionals. But they're going to have to do something. I do recommend, I think what we're doing with Comicsgate is the best thing right now. It's the best alternative. But it does rely on people to get out there and promote their own books, join a marketing network of other professionals and creators in creating this whole kind of thing. There's Comicsgate. There are Comicsgate books, and if you buy this one, you're going to hear about this one and that one. I think that's the best option for these guys. You saw Keanu Reeves come out through Kickstarter, make $1.6 million on a comic book with two other creators. That's encouraging.
That's the new wave. I truly believe that because it's like what my friend said. He said this is like the record business. A lot of artists are being successful off of going their own route, the indie route. And I'm not talking about Image. I'm talking about themselves being their own company and doing crowdfunding and promoting on social media. So it seems like it's like the record business now with comic books. People not making that much money under these companies no more, but they are making some good profit on the crowdfunding. And Second Street said it too in the chat. It seems like a lot of these like Boom and Image and Dynamite and all them, they're doing a lot of crowdfunding themselves.
Yeah, they're using as a way to fund the books. So Ethan, I do have a question for you. There's a lot of people are always going to say, well, DC is going to license out their comic books. And one of the things personally, like they can't really license out the line. What publishing company besides Marvel would even have the infrastructure to all of a sudden publish 40 new comic books?
So Marvel would, first of all, to answer that question, Marvel would never do it. Marvel would never license DC characters because Marvel is Disney and they're only interested in making the movies. So if you can't, I might let me get Hawkman off of you if I can do the Hawkman movie. No, you can't. AT&T. Okay, I don't want the comic book. So now you're asking comic book publishers to pay an awful lot of money to do a comic book. Let's say I wanted to get Plastic Man. I have no idea how much that's going to cost, but it's going to cost a lot. So now I've got to make a profit on top of that, and I can't make toys. I can't make a movie. I can't make a TV show. Nobody's going to do it.
You got to go to DC to get your story approved.
They've got to approve everything that I do. There is nobody that is going to do that. That's just not going to happen.
It fails on everything. There's not the companies who would be willing to put their neck in that noose do not have the money to do it. The companies that do have the money to do it are not going to see the upside, and it reinforces kind of the overall topic we're talking about here, which is the key reason Marvel would never do it is exactly that. They can't make the movies because it's not Marvel. It's Disney. It is Disney. Disney wants the MCU. They want Disney Plus. They want all that. If they can't play in that space, then the comics are a loss leader. It isn't important. AT&T and Disney both are going to look at this and say comics are branding, they're marketing. And they've thrown lots of money, far more money than the comic business makes or takes right now, all the time on nonsense things to get their brand out. And that's how both entities view comics right now. And as a comic reader and somebody who loves the industry, that may be tough to hear. The good news is you're going to continue to get some comics out of the mix. The bad news is that the people who are doing it don't care. They don't have this emotional love for the business. They're expanding their brand. That's what this is about. And so there's no way that a Marvel or a Disney would take DC and say throw it in there, unless it's like, oh, is this deal also coming with the ability to stream all the movies on Disney Plus? Now we're interested. But that's not going to happen. HBO's going to do their own thing. That's never going to happen.
What's so funny about that is the continuities don't even match. If they're going to use comics as branding and everything like that, that's fine and good. But then you have the fact that they control the comics, they control the movies, but the continuities don't match. And the people come into the shop saying, "I want to get this comic. I want to get this Spider-Man comic." Oh, wait a second, that's not the same Spider-Man. What the hell's going on here? You mean you just killed Spider-Man? Oh, Tom Holland? No, it's not Tom Holland.
I mean, bluntly, nobody in charge cares about that.
And it's stupid. It is stupid that they don't. They don't even put a blurb up at the end of the movie saying visit your local comic book shop. They don't even put anything in the comics that say go to see this movie. It's like, what the hell, people?
Now, here's something here that Larry is saying, and I think we can guess that the image founder in question is Todd McFarlane. Yeah, and the reason why Todd would want to do that is because Todd has already licensed the action figures for Batman and other characters. If Todd McFarlane could make a deal with DC Comics to publish the comic books and get to do the toys at the same time, possibility.
Cool. I could see somebody, going out there, maybe paying a lot of money to be able to crowdfund a Batman book. Like a one and done.
See, we'll always come back to Batman, though. That's the whole point.
Yeah, because it's going to
Nobody, exactly. Nobody's the rest. It's like you literally have like this IP pool from DC that basically, and John's understood it because he had said something about the time when he was, I think around the time he's doing Green Lantern Rebirth. They understand that there are generations who know what they're looking at when they see a Green Lantern symbol. They know what they're looking at when they see the Flash thing, who have never read that comic book in their entire lives. DC and Marvel's properties have grown to a point that, honestly, with all due respect, I don't even think they need to make the comics anymore. And I'm going to throw it out there. I know that's sacrilege. I might get hiked by head on a pike someplace. But with all due respect, if anybody thinks that Marvel needs a Black Panther comic book at this point to sell Black Panther merchandise and license stuff, you're out of your mind. That's beyond that.
The characters exist out there. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they're out there. It's mainstream now.
It won't go to Todd McFarlane either, because the way the properties are viewed is that this is marketing. So if you think about AT&T and think about how they would distribute their marketing, imagine somebody pushing to AT&T, how would you like to outsource and hand somebody else your marketing effort? That would be completely foreign as a business concept to them. They wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's like prostituting the character.
That's another great point.
That's how I look at it. And Batman is on a level. He needs to be an escort and not a prostitute. So I mean, that's just how I look at it.
Are we saying that the comics are marketing for? We're not saying comics are marketing for these properties, because that's not true.
Well, they are, and they've always been. And here's the thing: like if Todd McFarlane were to get Batman and Wonder Woman and this stuff. AT&T would have to hire somebody to make sure that what Todd was doing was in line with what their plans were for the movies and the TV, because they couldn't have those things be at odds.
Right.
If anybody, I think that the reason.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, just they wouldn't. It is marketing, and it's not that Black Panther needs the comics to survive. It's that any company that's controlling IP, they have lots of different ways of getting that IP out into the world. That's why AT&T will buy balloons with their logo on it and put it in random places, or sponsor sporting events that are completely outside of their business. It's keeping that brand in the market and doing this stuff. And it's gross. As a long-time comic fan, when you hear this, people naturally want to argue because it sounds gross to think about your favorite characters that way. But the giant mega corporations that own these businesses, that is how they view this business. It's just business.
You know, it's funny.
I get that part. Yeah.
First, I was watching the what is it? The Toys That Made Us, and one of the ways that you could get some marketing and kind of launch a toy line was you would go out there and you get a special 4-issue like comic book special out into the market, and then it became you kind of needed to have a cartoon. But now the way that you get an IP out there is you tie it into another successful IP, and then you kind of launch it out that way. Like, unfortunately, comics just don't have the exposure like they used to, where you could actually launch a toy line just with the comic book itself.
I was hoping that when Feige came on board, what they would do is shut down all the Marvel comics, shut them down, sync the continuity to Marvel phases in the movies, and have stories that branch off from the continuity in the movies, kind of fill in between the movies, say, okay, this is a side story, this goes on for here, this goes on over there, then it all converges when the movie comes out and syncs with the movie, then it goes off, you know, and it stays in a rough continuity with the films. And I was like, oh God, maybe if they do that, they could save the comic industry and this will explode. They didn't do it. They talked about it. I know they talked about it because I've talked to people that are involved, and they're like, that sounds like too much work. That sounds like that we've got too many people in the idea department that are butting heads. That wouldn't sell. And it's like, you have no idea. No idea.
I want to ask Ethan this real quick, just a little fun random question. If they made you president of whatever company you wanted to be president of, Marvel or DC, how would you save the comic book industry, sir?
I don't think it's savable. I don't think it's savable. I think what I'm doing now is my effort to make it possible for me and other people to continue doing comic books and make a lot of money. That's what I'm doing. Saving Marvel and DC, that's way outside of my purview. I would have no idea what to do. I would do exactly what they're doing: fire everybody and pare it way down to a dozen comic books that I put out. To me, the way that we think about comic books has to change entirely, because kids are reading. Kids are reading. But what are they reading? They're reading Harry Potter. They're reading Twilight. They're reading The Hunger Games. They're reading all of this stuff. They are reading these YA novels too. But that might not be the audience that we want to market to, the people who read Dogman and Underpants, Captain Underpants. We want to market to the kids that are reading Harry Potter books, right? Because they're smart kids who are into fantasy. And though they put these books out, they put out enormous books once or twice a year. They charge $25 for them, and they hype them up as big events. And that's the future, to me, of individual creators doing comic books. You have to deliver them yourself for now. Things might change where we find a place to put them. But crowdfunding, hyping up one big central event, the way Europeans do comics. Here's an 80-page issue of Cyberfrog. This is the event. It's got its own title. It's not Cyberfrog #2. It's called Cyberfrog Wrecked Planet. This is the second issue, or part 2 of this ongoing sequel. Just like the Harry Potter books had individual titles, and you could read them separately if you wanted to. And put them out once a year for $25. Crowdfund them to your audience that you've acquired on social media. Promote them with each other. So
Ethan, you don't believe in issues. You just believe in titles.
I believe in comics.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I believe in comic books.
Gotcha.
It doesn't matter how they come out. And you're seeing Marvel and DC realize that graphic novels are the future. They always sell. They're evergreen. As we see that these individual pamphlets are worthless within 2 weeks. And eventually, they get combined into 6-issue trade paperbacks that are sellable forever. That's where we need to go.
But that's genius, though, what you just said, because if I see an issue 154, I'm gonna be like, freak that. I'm not starting there. I'm not picking that up. But if I see a dangerous people get killed or something like that, I just made that up. But if you see a title right there, you're gonna pick that up because you're thinking, okay, I can start here instead of 154 or 255.
That's right. And people in the chat are saying $25 is too much for kids. That's a trip to the movies. Yes, a video game costs twice that much, and these kids find that money. Well, if you're asking for it once a year, you're gonna get it. We're seeing that it definitely works.
The Dogman books I saw when I was looking for my son, they're like $8, but it was like 100 and some pages.
Yep.
It's like a lot more bang for your
Last runner was off the hook. I would have paid $25 any day, all day for that comic book. Because it was good. It was good. Yeah.
So obviously,
it's a recognizable craft. Yeah.
Graphic novels kind of being the way of the future as far as physical publishing. When I think of like digital, which obviously digital is going to be a huge part of the future, it's got to be subscription services. And Perch, I think one of the big inhibitors right now is if you get your subscription service, your Marvel Unlimited, your Comixology Unlimited, sure, you get access to some really good classic stories, but you're not getting access to new comic books. And I think that's probably the reason they haven't blown up. If they want the subscription model to work, it's got to be like Netflix. You got to be able to binge the story on day one.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I think, look, I think we often, I think about this too complicated. So why isn't digital working in the U.S.? The digital platforms suck. The way the comics are coming out are terrible. It's a bad user experience. You compare it to anything that's going on.
PDFs are better.
Yeah, it's dramatically better in other countries. And what has been done in this country feels like nobody gives a shit, and they don't. And so that's why it's not working in the U.S. Second problem is that in other countries, tablet usage has been adopted. People are using it. They're used to reading their comics this way. People in Japan 15 years ago are reading on a mobile phone, and they got comfortable with that. In the U.S., we haven't gone there. So until that shift happens, you're also not going to see it happen. But when you see Manga Plus announcing this week that they've got 5 million active subscribers right now and growing like crazy and being able to do some fundraising off of it, they clearly have figured it out. It's working for them.
It's value.
And
it's value.
And right now, you should take, if you're Marvel and you're DC, and if there is anybody that frankly should be getting fired right now, it is the people, whoever has been managing their digital strategy, and they've gone through a rotating door of dumbasses over the last 10 years, they have utterly failed in doing anything to move this market along. So when we're sitting here talking about what will they do at digital, they're still in their infancy. And there's a bunch of problems. Yes, the US market still needs to adapt to it psychologically, but it is pathetic that we're having the conversation about, boy, when will digital ever be anything? At this point, in 2020, it's not acceptable. And then it's ridiculous.
No,
that we're having
and Perch, and I think that's what the larger issue is. I'm not arguing against the fact that digital doesn't have a place and digital won't be that. What I'm saying is we have people who are claiming to be market leaders of this thing, and I think we've all said it, who on a variety of levels do not care about this particular aspect of the business in relation to these properties.
Well, one of the things is that people that are in America that buy comics, Americans that buy comics, physically want to own the comic book. Europeans are probably very different. Japanese are very different. They don't mind digital. They don't mind not physically owning something, but people like to physically own the property. They like to be able to hold it in their hands. They like, even if the ink rubs off on them, which does with Marvel books now. But they want to physically own the comic book. And
you've been grooming people as collectors for the past 30 years in this business. Yep. You've been grooming them to own something, and then you're just saying, you want to read these the way that you would read a newspaper, not own them, not be able to ever sell them if it's a hit? How would that possibly work in American comics?
It won't because we have a massive collector's market. We have a collector's market that's bigger than all the rest of the world combined.
Do you want a digital variant cover? Is that what you want? You want to collect the digital variant cover? It doesn't make any sense.
Look, it's inevitable that digital is going to be a part of this future, but it is going to be a different market. It's going to have to be sold differently. It's going to be thought differently, and the people who are running it cannot come in with a 20-year traditional comic mentality and say, I know comics, so I can just figure this out. I have no idea what digital is, but hey, look, I've got this title. I know what I'm doing. They don't. It would be like somebody from a pharmaceutical industry coming into a tech industry going, I can just do this, no problem. I'll write an app. I can make medicine. How hard can this be? It's very different, and you're going to have to curate a different audience. The dumb part is that the big U.S. publishers should have been curating this audience back in 2010.
Yep.
That's where they're behind, and so that is why. I mean, any of these companies would love to have 5 million SaaS customers right now. Paying monthly for this. They'd love it. That would be a great thing. It blows a lot of what they're doing right now out of the water, but they've put no energy or effort or any kind of thoughtful business plan to it. So like we have collectors and all the rest. Yeah, we do. It's not, you're not saying that the collectors are going to all have to change. You're saying that this is a new market that should have built up, and it didn't. Nobody did it.
It didn't. Yep.
I want to tell people in the chat, Wes went to go take a tinkle, and he'll be right back. Okay.
I don't think you can blame the customers for this because they weren't marketed to properly. They just don't want it. They just don't want digital. It's been profoundly rejected. It's been rejected here in the United States. Now, I read Walking Dead digitally, or I used to, because I just didn't care to own them. They take 10 minutes to read. I don't want to read them ever again, really. I mean, you know, they were like newspapers. They were like getting the news. So because of the disposable nature of Walking Dead, I suppose I like to read it digitally. But something like, hey, Jeff Johns and Jay Fabic are putting out 3 Jokers. I want to own that. You know, I want that in paper. And that's, you know, that's a whole different thing. We can't just sit there and, you know, like I was saying earlier, we have been grooming people to be collectors. In fact, depending on the fact that they are going to collect these comic books physically. And instilled in them the idea that they are going to be resellable, and then try to convince them to also go digital, usually at the same price. What do digital comics cost? Are they any cheaper at all?
No, I hope so. But just the thing about digital though, is it a market? Is it like a lot of people out there that say, "Dang, I can't wait for the digital comic to come out." Is that a thing?
It's a good way to catch up on a story, right? Like it's like, oh, I got to read these 4 issues of the Avengers. Let me just digitally download them real quick.
Yep. Well, are they reading from a cell phone or an iPad or
iPad? Some type of tablet. No. I mean, phones now are getting big enough where you can kind of get away with it if it's if the application
I'm an old
is
man.
written properly for it. You know, if you got like a 7-inch iPhone Max or something like that, it's not so bad. But if you're looking at like a 5.5-inch LG Android phone, you know, it's not going to be a really good experience. But the new iPads rock. The new iPads rock for reading digital comics.
Because for me, the only way that digital can be a thing is if you put some hot artists and some hot writers and just say this is strictly digital. This is the only way you can get it.
But they've tried that. They've tried that a bunch of times.
It's not the challenge again with digital is that they keep looking at it as saying, oh, it's another channel. It's a way for us to make a little bit extra money. That's the way they start with this conversation. It's like, we're making comics, we're putting them out to comic shops, and good news, we'll make an extra 20% by this thing over here that we're not going to care about, but it's just free cash. And big surprise, it doesn't wind up being free cash because everybody can sense that it's an afterthought, and it's being marketed to the same people who will say, I will never go digital because I'm a collector or because I care about, you know, the content may change at some point. They might edit out that bat penis and then I won't get to see it. So I really need to see that bat penis. Please don't take away my bat penis. That's how I always view that.
How sad is that? That's
like... and amen, Perch. It's an afterthought. There is no vision. Sure. There is no plan. There is no saying. There is no even saying, what do these customers look like? What are they going to look like? How do they like to consume this? What are selling a digital comic to me is pointless. It's pointless because I'll tell you that to your face. Yeah. I don't want a digital comic. What I want is I want 100. When you start your line, I want 120 pages at $10, and then you got me if it's good. That's all I want. That's all I want. If I'm getting ahead of myself, speaking for the print readers out there, all I want is to be able to sample a book for less than $4. That's what I want. That's what I want. And if your book is good, I will continue to buy your book.
But that's what Shonen Jump realized. That's what they did, and that's why the strategy is working. They didn't see this as, hey, let's try and convince all the print collectors that they can buy it this way. They didn't ever start that way. But in the U.S., here we are, and again, year after year, including all the new DC digital efforts, it just in everything that they write, they're still looking at this as, we're going to print comics and then we'll play around with digital over there. It looks like an afterthought, and nobody wants to drop $4, $5, whatever it is, to something that feels like nobody gives a shit.
Because comic book readers in the United States are primarily collectors and readers.
Yeah,
except that was true in Japan as well for a long period of time.
It's a different culture.
They figured out how to build it. Pele, They figured out how to build a new market. They didn't sit there and go, well, they're collectors and they're never going to change, and they figured out how to build a new market.
But you're talking about people that have done it this way since the 1940s. It's a market that's been that way since the 1940s. Collectors are readers.
That's the
readers are
exact same
collectors.
story in Japan. It's had the same duration. This isn't different. They went out and they found a new audience, and there's still people who buy print in Japan. Plenty of them. There's still collectors.
But it's not the same culture. It's not the same culture that reads the comics.
You're completely wrong here. Completely.
No,
wrong.
I'm not.
Okay, well,
let
me break into this. I just want to say one thing to Ethan. Ethan, ever since you've been on this stream, I've been having one song in my head, and I'm gonna see if you know. Hello, I started this gangster, and this the mother loving face I get. Oh no, that song been in my head the whole time.
The motherfucking world is a ghetto. Yeah, I love that song, dude. Love it. That's my theme. That's my shit.
And I just like to throw this out there because I mean, I've been very encouraged by the way Sean, let me get his name right, Gordon Murphy is handling his project. It just seems to be very, for lack of a better word, reflexive to where the audience he's dealing with is going with it. It's just, he's like, I'm going to put it out. If I can get it down to 250 so people can do it, then I'll get it down to 250. There was just a flexibility in terms of his trying to see what the market is and respond to that market in a way to deliver the product that it wants at the price that it wants. And I mean, to Perch's point, like when I talk to my daughters, because I am trying to introduce them into comic books, whether it be the hobby or the reading or just the enjoyment of the product, it's like the things that come up when they're talking about it. It's just like, well, I just don't like this book because it's too violent, or I don't like this book because I would like to know more about their friends. I would like to do this. I just don't see any of that kind of thought or effort going into what they're putting out. Like Perk said, it just feels like the way the market leaders, DC and Marvel, are running this business, it's just an afterthought. It's just like, okay, we'll just slap it in there and see what happens. And there's just no leadership at all.
So Perch, there are some people that wonder, how could you know so much about the Japanese culture? What is Perch talking about? How can you say the culture of Japan is not different from the culture of the U.S.? You certainly didn't say that the Japanese culture is the same as the U.S. You said there are similarities as far as their collecting culture,
collectors,
comics and manga.
Yeah, it's a business, and you have different audiences. Obviously, the culture of but I mean, I've lived in Japan for long periods of time. It is, what I'm saying is not amazing genius thought here. It is that you have a business, you have a market that collects things physically, and then you want to get them to digital, or you want to make money there. You find a new market with new people, and you market for digital, and you attack that. That's it.
And you dump the collectors.
You don't kill number two. You attack them both simultaneously, and saying our market is only number one, and we can never get that digital thing, so it's just impossible. Those people are going to get killed over time.
There are people that buy manga in the United States. It's not a large number compared to the collector's market. It's just not. The digital readers in the United States are not the same number of people as there are the collectors.
Yeah, that's because they haven't reached them yet. What I'm saying,
I just don't think they exist.
No, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. They exist. They exist.
I just don't know if they exist enough to actually support the market.
No, they exist, but this is coming now back to Perch's point. Now for Anime Concepts, as we're doing formal and informal market research and stuff, when it comes to at least these, and I would say African American Black kids, manga always comes up, always. Now, does it mean that it's translating into manga comic sales? No, what it means is they like that genre. They're watching it. However they're consuming it, whether it's bootleg, downloads of the print stuff, or if they're watching it on Netflix or whatever it is, they are well aware of that. The problem is, and I'm not familiar with Manga Plus, but the problem is, like Perch is saying, you have to create a marketplace. You have to create a marketplace. And I'm agree with Jamie Anderson. I'm not real big on the manga stuff. I'm just saying there are manga readers out there, just like I think there are comic print readers out there.
Right here.
It's just nobody's making a concerted effort to go after those markets. Exactly. And I'm going to disagree with a comment in the chat earlier on about the IP incubators thing, because I'm sorry, that's documented. That's documented in Comic Wars that they were moving away from publishing as being the principal operation of business to going after merchandising and licensing. Matt Fraction I think it was a GameStop interview one time said that the publisher were looking at comics as the lost leaders to every other category that they deal with their IP. They are not interested in curating or building this market. And I think in the long term, it's a mistake. I think you're right, Perch. You have to have something out there all the time, which always has the property out in front of them. But it's like if they think they're going to go with the $5 and keep putting out 15 versions of something that's keeping it up in front of the marketplace, I think they're fooling themselves.
And you're right. And another thing too, this is just me, and I might be speaking for a lot of people out there. The art is trash. Because let's just be honest, when it comes to a comic book, the first thing you doing is, that's going to be a dope story right there. No, you look at it and say, wow, that cover is off the hook. Let me pick that up. But this mediocre trash art that we've been getting with Marvel and DC, I think that's a lot of the problem too.
I'll tell you what, I have seen more people in the last month now since they announced that Demon Puppy was going to be going over to do X-Men for 5 or 6 issues. They're excited. They're like, oh my God, I can't wait to get this. Oh my God. And, they're excited. They're really looking forward to that. And you're right. The art general in comics has taken a really serious turn down. Green Lantern has never looked good since Ethan left. I'm sorry. It has not looked great since Ethan left.
I think Liam Sharp's great.
I'm peeping.
He's all right, but
I'm peeping Cyberfrog, and I see how Ethan do the covers. It got that big 90s style attention grabbing covers. You know what I mean? People want that. That's what made people grab stuff. We don't want this little itty bitty SJW skinny characters, slim characters. No, we want the muscles. We want the action. Grab my attention.
All right, Cradle J. All right,
I'm just saying, man, it's just sad, man, how the comic game has just tanked,
So, it's to sum it up, Valiant was great until it wasn't. Valiant was great until it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, Ethan, obviously you do your books through crowdfunding. You do direct-to-consumer. We know DC are shrinking their line. Marvel's already done the same thing. We've seen the sales over at Image and Boom with some of their higher profile creators. They've obviously risen up through the direct market. Is that a market that you're eventually going to have to move into or take advantage of, or do you think you're just going to stick with the current market and you're not try and go out there and
I'm just gonna let the Lord guide me. Honestly, I do that. The path becomes open. It becomes clear what I'm supposed to do. And right now, I'm supposed to be marketing my comics through YouTube, Indiegogo. I'm supposed to be helping other indie comic book creators get their starts, get their books launched. I'm supposed to be shepherding over anybody who wants to come over from the mainstream. Dan Fraga, we've got Kenneth Rocafort, we've got Shane Davis. We've got some big artistic names. We got some writers. We got Bill Willingham's coming over to Comicsgate. And I'm going to help these guys get their books funded. And I'm going to help them become independent creators that get to make comics on their own terms. And when you're making comics on your own terms, your work becomes better. Will you share my screen, Wes? Am I allowed to show an image?
Let's go for it.
Shout out to Fraggle Boom. I've been reading this stuff since the 90s.
Oh, dude, his book, Black Flag, Pineapple Perceptions, up on Indiegogo right now. Yeah. I don't, this is Salamandroid from Cyberfrog. This is Cyberfrog 2 Wreck Planet. I'm doing stuff that I want to do right now, and I'm doing it mostly for me. When you're doing the comics that you want to do and not, working as the voice of a corporation. And you'll do stuff that I think entertains and interests more people. Marvel and DC right now, all of their comics are characters kissing each other and crying. I don't know what that company is anymore. I'm not sure. What happened to the action? What happened to the extreme overwhelming odds? What happened to heroes being heroes? Everything now is about identity politics. Everything right now is just absolutely dreadful, and the fans are responding in kind. They're getting bored and they're leaving.
What was that you had Snowflake and Safe Space holding each other on the cover? I was like, oh Jesus God, no! Oh please, no!
People don't want that. I understand that that's what they want to do. I understand that that's what they want to see. Here's the situation. The comic book companies, Marvel and DC, were overtaken by Disney and AT&T, and now all they can ever be is microphones to espouse what that company wants to project to the public. It's no longer, you can't get Fatal J to be like, you know what? I had a fucked up dream last night. It gave me a great idea for a story that's going to change people's lives. It's going to make people cry. This story is going to make people physically uncomfortable. They're going to be scared. They're going to be excited. That's AT&T is going to go, but that's going to make us look like, this or that. That's not the image that our company wants to project. So, maverick, rogue, crazy creators telling amazing stories that you might disagree with, that people might be made uncomfortable by. Guys like Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, these guys are not going to be able to work within a system where all they're doing is acting as spokespeople for the corporation's public line, their agenda. And, that's the state of the comic book industry. How can we fix it? We can't fix it. All we can do is go off on our own and do our own comics.
Interesting. Yeah, I believe it was Grant Morrison kind of was doing some meta commentary on his thoughts on DC Comics, and it looked like Tom King in one of his Green Lantern issues. But I will say this, if you go and read the last remaining story arc right now on Amazing Spider-Man, that's pretty trippy. It's very dark, and I don't see a whole lot of messaging in it, but unfortunately, it feels like those are becoming fewer and far between, right?
Yeah. I mean, when it's a marketing arm and you're trying to put licensing out there, then you are trying to do something that's going to serve the greater good of the corporation you're working on. And some of those stories will wind up being just fine. Some of those stories are going to wind up hitting because it just so happens you can tell a good story out of that. But the odds are I don't want to say lower. Well, yeah, I mean, just lower. The odds are lower you're going to get that because you have a lot more guardrails on now. You have a lot more control. And
how does it make you, what do you think readers think, knowing that they're no longer getting the House of Ideas? They're no longer getting Marvel Comics and their whole aesthetic, but instead Marvel Comics is speaking for Disney. And how do you think they feel knowing that AT&T is now the power that be behind DC Comics? Do you think that makes people feel secure, safe, more interested, or less interested in the comics?
No, it will definitely be less interested, but a lot of people haven't put that together yet, and it will be a while. Yeah. I mean, Marvel or Disney and these other groups, they do an effective job at times of segmenting their brands out, so you don't see the puppets hand controlling things. But if that ever became absorbed fully by comic readers, that they're getting basically a marketing vehicle, and it's that, if that fully kind of comes in, it's going to be very harmful. But I would argue that's why you've seen an erosion over the last several years as well from the big two, because more and more people are coming to that conclusion, and they're going to the indies or they're going other places. They're just stopping. I think if it ever becomes really, really clear that the brand serves the corporation, it's going to fall very, very quickly because nobody wants to sign up for that.
Yeah, it's one of the worst things about being a comic book reader is knowing Disney did not acquire Marvel Comics for the comics. They wanted something for boys that rivaled Disney princesses, and they said superheroes are the thing, right?
No. And that was because of the work that Marvel had done coming out of bankruptcy to build it up to be the brand, the kind of brand that Disney wanted to acquire. And I think people have to remember that. There was a time when Marvel was dead in the water because they said characters matter and creators don't. And if they hadn't done what they had done with the MCU, which was a huge gamble, and I tip my hat to them for that. But I think this when we're talking about how Marvel moved, it happened long before Disney came along. That focus, or that change in focus, was not necessarily just because of Disney. They started making themselves attractive to a company like Disney. That's what their whole strategy was. So, you know, and I just like to say this, because I don't think it's done. And I hope no one who's watching the stream is taken away from this, that we think that comics are going away. Comics are not going away. Comics are going to be here for a long, long, long time. And I think, much like I'm always grateful for Image, because they've opened it up to the point where now someone like Ethan Van Sciver and other guys can put their work out there. And I will give Ethan this point. You don't want to lose the direct market. You don't want to lose a place where people can come to discover that work. You have to have as many places for people to discover this work, whether it's a brick and mortar or a digital or however it is, because not everybody is going to find this work the same way. So, you know,
and this thing I want to add, Ethan, how much of a success to Cyberfrog when it comes to YouTube and social media? Like how much was that helped out your comic book?
100%.
But that's what I'm saying. Social media has put artists like you and other potential artists on the same level as these big companies. So why won't more people go out there and just put out the content that they want to put out instead of going with these dying companies?
Because they're scared. And I mean, look, here's the thing. I always compare. Well, no, I mean, the money's there. They just don't know it. Yep. I always compare the industry to the Titanic right now. And, you know, you're sitting there, you're watching some people get into lifeboats, but you're still on the Titanic and your feet aren't cold yet. They're not in the water yet. It's sinking. How long is it going to take for you to get off of the Titanic? You know, how long are you going to delay that? Inevitably, these people are going to have to get into lifeboats, and they're going to have to take their own futures and destinies into their hands. None of these people want to be doing anything. Well, I don't think. Most of these people don't want to be doing things other than comics.
Just make sure to tell the bitch it's riding on the door. Make sure to tell the bitch it's riding on the door that there's room for two on that, and just scoot her ass over.
That's true. Why did Leo have to die at the end of that?
What the hell?
So unfair, yeah. But yeah, I mean, so comics. When you say comics are not going away, that's right. They're not going to go away. People are going to be creating more things, and this is an opportunity, not unlike Stan Lee in 1961. You know, Marvel didn't used to exist. There was a time where there was no Marvel comics.
There you go. There you go.
And it did exist because one guy stepped forward and decided to do comics his way, and
they used to be distributed by DC.
There are many, many more Stan Lees out there. I believe we're going to come forward and create something in comics where all of these questions are going to be answered, and we don't have to know the answer now. You know, it's like, are you going to go to the direct market? I don't know. We'll see. Is the direct market going to still be around? I don't know. That's not in my hands. How are comics going to be distributed in the future? Is it digital? Maybe. Is it Walmart, Target? Perhaps. We'll see. You know, we'll see. But right now, this is pretty good. It's working out for Comicsgate, and it's working out for other people who try to crowdfund. You're gonna do fewer comics. You're gonna distribute them yourself. You're gonna make a lot more money, and I think that's a good thing. You get to do the comics on your own terms.
So even sometimes I think some people get the feeling that sometimes you're rooting kind of against the direct market. I think maybe like you're not rooting for the shops and everything. You just think that the big two aren't producing of the quality that they should, and comics need a different path forward.
Comics were invaded, in my opinion. Now we're going to get political. In my opinion, comics were invaded by far left-wing radicals, just like video games were, just like movies were, just like television was.
Like a disease,
and they started to steer these comics towards their own agenda. And you're seeing it all around. And when they did that, some people were excited about it, but a lot of people were put off by it, and a lot of people left the industry. They left collecting comics. In my opinion, those people are not uprootable. They have, they exist from the very top. You know, the people who are running these companies now, all the way down to the mailroom. They're in there. So what do I think? Well, I think that, and they don't care. They don't care about making money. They care about making comics that say what they want to have said. In my opinion, forests need to burn down sometimes in order to, for new growth to happen. Forest fires are actually a good thing oftentimes. They get rid of old growth. They get rid of some trees. They space things out, and they allow for new trees to grow. So in my opinion, it pains me that the end result of this is that brick and mortar shops suffer, but brick and mortar shops have been exploited by these people for the last 10 years with various predatory publishing schemes, variant covers, scams. And these companies don't look at you and I, the readers, as the customers. They look at the retailers as their customers, and they try to exploit them.
Wow.
So, and then the retailers have to sell to us. They have to sell to customers, and they're like, you come in there and you go, why are there, why is this one event, Secret Wars 2? Why does it have 48 variant covers? Why does it have 48 spin-offs? Do I have to read all of this shit? Do I have to buy it all? And the retailer's like, well, I put out the money to provide it for you. People are being exploited right now in the comic book industry, and it does need to change.
Why they keep pushing these freaking Captain Marvel books? It's not selling.
Nobody wants that shit. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants Ms. Marvel.
Nope.
These are Ms. Marvel's funny. I was talking about it today. I was just like, why is the Avengers video game? By the way, they put out an Avengers video game in September, and it's already down. Like players it's dropped by 96%. I mean, it's like Avengers Assemble. No, they're not going to assemble.
Well,
nobody's playing that game anymore.
You know why?
Why?
Because of who you play. It's
Kamala Khan.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
They put Kamala Khan in there, and you go, why is Kamala Khan in?
Kamala Khan.
Well, we know why on that one. So.
But
You've got the top Avengers. You've got Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America. You've got the founding members of the Avengers, and then there's Kamala Khan in there. And you go, why is this happening? Well,
I don't want to play a girl with big hands. I don't care about her big hands.
Her powers suck. She's an awful costume. But the reason why is probably because Sana Amanat created her and has a stake in her. Now, I know I created Atrocitus. I created a bunch of stuff for DC. I created the Flash Iron Heights prison. And I think either Barry Allen's mother or father, I think I created his mother. I can't remember. But I have a stake in that. So when the Justice League movie came out, and I tell people money. Because it's Comic Artist Pro Secrets on my channel. Subscribe and learn the real shit. They mentioned Iron Heights prison in the Justice League movie, and they mentioned Nora Allen in the Justice League movie. I got a check for $106,000 for that. Okay, that's legit. That's free money for nothing. I did no work for that. So imagine, and that's where the money is, in media. That's why I'm hoping that Snyder cut. Zack Snyder, if you cut that fucking shit out of, excuse my language, but if you cut that out of your movie, I'm going to get another paycheck, Zach. I know it. But here's the thing. If you have control over a character that you have a stake in, like Kamala Khan, and you work for the company, that means you're like president of the company, whatever Sana Amanat's role is, she's up there, okay, in the hierarchy. Director. She's putting her character in all the video games, all the TV shows. She's making action figures. Nobody wants this character. She is making millions of dollars off of that.
Character development. I don't think she makes decisions on what goes into video games.
Why is her character going in every single video game? Why is her character going in all the TV? Why the TV show? Why? I mean, yeah, they are. They're making a TV show based on her character.
Why did Disney make a Rocketeer show with the?
But she's the most boring character Marvel has.
I'm saying, why is it consistently her?
Yeah, but I could give Ethan that one, but then what's the take on Miles Morales then? Who I think is a much more successful attempt at that.
Miles Morales isn't in everything. Miles Morales
That's true. I'm just saying though, but in terms of the character,
is actually popular. I
mean,
Miles Morales is,
okay. That's
like him.
And he got a movie too. Yep. A dope movie.
Yeah, no, that's what I get to. Because I agree with Miss Marvel. I do not understand Miss Marvel.
My thing is Captain Marvel, nobody likes her. My thing is Miss Marvel, nobody likes her. And they are both in everything. And there's a reason for it. I mean, there's definitely a reason for it.
So, Perch, we're kind of starting to wrap things up. I mean, I believe we can all admit that the industry is going through a transition period. What it comes out on the other end, we're not exactly sure. We can see where these companies are prioritizing and where they're kind of moving around. Ethan did say, sometimes you have to burn the forest down to regrow it. Perch, do you think, does it need to go that far, or can there be a smooth transition where, maybe not so many people are hurt?
So many people have already been hurt. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Perch. Maybe the last word on that.
These are metaphors. So, I mean, the change is coming, and if you're one of the people who's getting laid off, it is going to feel like the world's coming down, and we're in for change. It's definitely going to look sizably different over the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to look very, very different, and whether that means everybody has to go or I don't think everybody has to go, but I do think there's a lot of people in comics for one reason or another. I think there's more than one reason. Who are either holding it back or trying to avoid making this progress or trying to shove their own agendas in or whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of people who are playing their own games because that's always how it's been playing. And this is inevitable. Change is inevitable. It rolls, either you figure out a way to benefit from it and profit off of it, or it rolls over you. And there's going to be some people that it's going to roll over. And that there's no doubt about that. For people who really are nostalgic about how DC and Marvel operated in the 80s and the 90s, like me. I mean, people think that I'm the one who's like, it's all got to go digital and it's all got to change. My favorite era was the 80s. I absolutely love those comics. I got a ton of them on my shelf. I've sold many of them. I benefit from this industry, but I'm not a fool. Things change. Things do change, and you figure out your angle or you get crushed. And a lot of people are going to get crushed, and there'll be a couple people who get rich. And that's not a crazy prediction. That's life.
So I do want to say thank you so much for the panel today. Like I said, if you're your first time visiting the channel, consider subscribing. Definitely give us a thumbs up for this panel. So I think we had a really good conversation. Now we're going to do the thing at the end where we kind of recommend some comic books. Ethan, thank you so much. Obviously, you have your own YouTube channel, Comic Artist Pro Secrets. You're hugely influential. Thank you for joining the channel today. Do you have a comic book that you would want to recommend to the viewers today?
Beyond my own, I want to recommend Cyberfrog, obviously. Let me think. I want to recommend Charlie's London, which is a Comicsgate title that's currently funding on Indiegogo. It's a licensed graphic biopic. What would you call it? A biographic graphic novel about the life of Charlie Chaplin. And the Chaplin family approved of it. It's funding right now. It's called Charlie's London. East Lane to the Limelight. Is it a silent
comic book? Is there words?
There are words in it, and the art is beautiful. I mean, it really is amazing.
And Charlie Chaplin is a handsome mother lover. If you look on Google and just look at his pictures, he was a stud.
He got a lot of girls, that's for sure.
I can imagine. I mean, I'm like, dang, this dude looks suave. I mean, even without the little thing right here.
I want to tell you something, Ethan. I want to tell you something, Ethan. We sold a CGC 9.6 Cyberfrog from the Harris Comics. We sold one 9.6 for $650 this week.
From me to you, pal.
And I tell you what, it is hot, and people still going and digging up the back issues of Cyberfrog, and I'm impressed. It's moving books.
We're just creating excitement. That's all we want to do is create excitement and enthusiasm, get people excited about our comics. So I want to recommend Charlie's London. I want to recommend Starlight Cats by Shane Davis. And if you'll indulge me, I also want to recommend Black Flag, Pineapple Perception by Dan Fraga, and so many others. I mean, once you check those ones, you'll get keyed into a whole new world of comics and creators. And you might decide that you want to do it yourself. So, and thank you, Wes. I appreciate your inviting.
Ethan, I got the old Black Flag, so I want to get the new one.
Those are going to go up in value too. Those are going to go up in value. Yeah, watch out.
I do appreciate it. Fatal J, obviously you have your own manga that's about ninjas that you're working on that you'll be wanting to probably pimp here on the show, and we'll definitely give you that opportunity. Is there anything right now that you're recommending?
Last mother freaking Ronin. I am enjoying myself. I've been a TMT fan since I was 7 years old. This book is dope. I can't wait for part 2. Hey man, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's excellent.
If you're waiting on that book to come cheaper, if you're waiting for the first print to get cheaper, you're waiting too long because it's not going to get cheaper.
And be expected a video from Fatal J and myself talking about the big delay right here on the channel tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
So next up, Pele, what are you guys recommending down at the shop this week?
Well, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man number 32. 52 rather. Get it, and the LR, the Last Rights issue. They're great. Also, I really enjoyed it's one of the better Amazing Spider-Man comics that I've read in a long ass time. It's gory, it's bloody, it's awesome. Also, go and just go buy the dollar books. I mean, the The True Believers stuff is awesome. They've got some really cool True Believers reprints of #1s this week. Keep buying True Believers because that's really the best stuff Marvel's putting out right now.
All right, Gervain, obviously you've got your own comic book publishing line coming up. We'll definitely be talking about it here on the channel when you're ready to launch. Is there anything you're recommending this week for the viewers?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna definitely tag team with Pele on the True Believer stuff. I think there's a lot of good stuff coming out from there that will lead a lot of people to a lot of good stuff in terms of the trade paperbacks.
And it's $1. It's $1.
Yeah, and it's $1. Of course, my two big ones are always going to be Power Rangers and Firepower. But I do want to get out there two back issue runs. Somebody reminded me about Straczynski's and Romita's run with the Moreland character in Amazing Spider-Man, starting with number 30. And I watched something on Sci-Fi Behind the Panel. I think it was a series that was a little bit ahead of its time, which was Squadron Supreme. I think you should go check out that 12-issue limited series. There's definitely one page in there where you might say it was Bendis worthy in terms of dialogue, but it's dialogue done right. So those are my recommendations.
Perfect. All right, Perch, what are you recommending this week for the viewers?
I mean, I'll give a different answer than I've ever given. I mean, this was a bad week for me.
It was a very bad week. Other than Amazing Spider-Man, it's been terrible.
Yeah, that Ten of Swords week was the nut punch I wasn't expecting. For sure, I went to a different level. I think there are comics out there for everybody. I think that people should start looking beyond the horizon of Marvel or DC or whatever you're used to getting. Go check out the crowdfunded books. Go check out what people are putting up on digital or on web comics. Look at what some of the indies are doing. Start putting more emphasis there because there is 100% a comic you're going to enjoy in that pile. And if you constantly feel like you have to get that comic out of one of the big two, you're going to be continuously having to settle. So make more of an effort to go out there and just figure out. I can't tell you, what you're going to like. So rely on that and go take more effort into figuring out who's giving it to you. Because if somebody is guaranteed with all the comics being produced, somebody is giving you what you want. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah, right now, it seems like 2-1 comics I'm enjoying are indies to big two. It might even be 3-1 now. Kind of some of the things that have fallen down. I can't remember the name of Perch. What's the Marvel comic where they went and grabbed certain versions of the Avengers and put them on like a super team?
Avengers Forever.
That's what I'm reading right now, and I'm recommending that. I'm not recommending anything new other than Amazing Spider-Man 52, but Avengers Forever has been great. And I want to say thank you to Yul Carter, who recommended that to me. And I started reading it. It's absolutely amazing.
It's a good book to read before you get to DC Generations, which will be a copy of that.
So I do want to say thank you to everybody. I think this has been a great panel, and thank you all very much. We'll be right here next weekend, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Wash your ass.